take a look at the warm-up for today. Tim recorded the temperature for 4 days in a row. Each day the temperature dropped 2 degrees. What was the temperature on day 4 compared to day 1? So we don't know the actual temperature. We can only say if it dropped or if it went up and by how much. Anybody have a strategy that you use to solve this? What do you think, EJ? So, yeah, what's the strategy you use to figure out what it was after 4 days? Uh-huh. Okay. I agree. So, how are we going to get our answer? What do you think, Raleigh? Yes, please. Okay. Okay, so I think that you are on the right track. It dropped 2 degrees every day for 4 days, so you were using repeated addition. And so I think that's if day 1 it went down 2, the next day 2 more, so we're at -4. The third day we're at negative, what? We were at -4 and we dropped 2 more, we're at -6. And on the 4th day it dropped 2 more, so we're at -8. Or you could have said 4 days times -2. 4 days, time is positive. Dropping 2 is negative. -2, 4 times -2 is -8. So what was the temperature? The temperature was 8 degrees higher or lower? Lower. The temperature was 8 degrees lower. So make sure that you have some kind of unit. I have the little degree sign, the superscript 0 up there means 8 degrees. The temperature was 8 degrees lower. That's what you would say. When is the product of 2 factors negative? So we've got some vocabulary here that we need to understand. What's the word that we need to understand in there to help us out, Mackenzie? Product. Product is the answer of what kind of problem? Multiplication. So when is the answer to a multiplication problem negative? We're only talking about 2 factors. So when is it negative, Mackenzie? When there's 1 positive and 1 negative, or you could say when the signs are different. When one factor is positive and the other is negative. E. 3a, -7 times 9. Hopefully you did that without a calculator. What is -7 times 9? -63. What is -9 times -7? Positive 63. Very good. And 7 times -9? -63. All right. Those should have been the easiest things you did all day long. All right, solve -3/4 times 8. So this you should not have used a calculator, correct? Okay, so -3/4 times 8/1. Did you multiply across and then simplify, or did you cross simplify first? Which way should we solve it? Cross simplify. Which 2 numbers cross simplify? The what? 8 and 4, right? 4 goes into 4 1 time. 4 goes into 8 2 times. So 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times 1 is 1. And 6 over 1 simplifies to what? 6. Is it positive or negative? Negative. A negative times a positive is a negative. If I didn't cross simplify, what would that look like? 3/4 times 8 over 1 is 24 over 4. And 24 divided by 4 is what? 6. I would have gotten the same answer. And if that's negative, then that's a -6. Either way, you should have gotten -6. And you should be able to do that without a calculator. All right, 5. Find each quotient and then circle the problems that have a positive answer. So, 2 steps. First, find each quotient. What does quotient mean? Answer to a division problem. And then circle the problems that have a positive answer. All right. -18 divided by 3 is -6. 18 divided by 3, it's positive, so I'm going to circle it. 18 divided by -3. Do I circle that one? Nope. -18 divided by -3, +6. Do I circle that one? Yes. That's it. That's all there was for today. Questions? Okay, put it up. You got one more day on this warm-up. And let's move on to our notes. We're going to move on to inequalities today. Inequalities. This is our first page of our notes that we need right here. Solving 1- and 2-step inequalities. So last year you learned to solve 1-step inequalities. How is an inequality similar or different from just a 1-step equation? Anybody know? What do you think, Camden? Yes, other than that, it's pretty much the same. So it's all in the interpretation of the answer. So if I said x plus 6 equals 10, and if I said x plus 6 is less than 10, is the math I do for those two things any different? No, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to split this here. I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides, and I'm left with x, that's a 0 pair, equals 4. So in this problem, the difference comes in the interpretation of the answer. This means that x is a number that is exactly 4. There's only one answer to an equation. X has to equal 4. Over here, same thing, split it here, subtract 6, but you're left with x is less than 4. So how many answers do I have for this problem, for an inequality? Do I have exactly one? No. How many answers are there? There's just 2. So this means x has to be a number that is equal to 4. The only number equal to 4 is 4. There's only one number that makes that true. This is saying that x has to be a number that is less than 4. Could my answer be 4? No, not unless it had this little line under it. That's less than or equal to. It does not. It says x has to be a number less than 4. So what could a possible answer for this problem be? Yes? 1. X could be 1. What else could x be? 2. What else could x be? What else could x be? Could not be 4. What did you say, Camden? It could be any negative number there is in the world. Infinite possibilities. Anything on the number line that is less than 4 could be what x is. Could it be 1/2? X could be 1/2 because that's less than 4. Could x be -1,000,000? Yes, it could, because that is less than 4. So the difference is an equality has exactly one answer. An inequality has a set of answers that you could choose from. Okay? Other than that, the math that we're going to do, exactly the same, except we're going to graph them. So let's take a look at our notes. All right, so how do you read this right here? It says x is less than 0. I'm sorry. So, all numbers less than 0. Write the word less on that line. X is any number less than 0. And how would we graph that? So last year we learned that an open circle means it does not include a number. So it cannot include 0, so it's open. We cannot fill it in. But it's every number less than 0 going that way. When you graph this on a number line, you draw it right on the number line. We don't hover above the number line. You draw it right on the number line. And it's every number less than 0. But because it does not include 0, you cannot fill it in, right? All right, how do we read the next problem? X is less than or equal to 0. Less than or equal to. Got to fill this in. And so our answer choices are a little bit different than over here. It's still all the numbers less than 0, but what's different this time? Your answer choice could also include 0. So because it could be equal to 0, we close the dot. If our answer could be 0, we're going to circle that in. It could be exactly 0. We're going to color our dot in. But it's not only 0, it's all the other numbers less than 0. Got to go that direction. So, do you see the difference in the way you graph the two? If it's equal to, you have to close the dot. If it's just less than or greater than, it's an open dot. That matters when you graph. You've got to pay attention to that. All right, how do we say this number? Our answer, our set of answers is what? Greater than or equal to. Closed circle or open circle? Closed, because our answer could be exactly 0. X could be equal to 0, so we close it. Or it could be all the numbers greater than, so we've got to go this direction. And how do we say that last one? Camden? X is greater than 0, so just the word greater. Open circle or closed circle?
Teachers and students, please pardon the interruption. At this time, any 7th grade.
So, open dot or closed dot? Open, right? Because it does not include 0. Has to be all the numbers greater than 0. But we have to give a beginning place, so that's an open dot, and we go this direction. These numbers are greater than 0. All right. Do you remember how to do that from last year? Yes, good. Okay. All right, so let's go down and let's look at the next section. Solving 1 and 2 step inequalities. Solve any inequality by using the same process, which is inverse operations. That says inverse operations, as when solving an equation. The inequality symbol takes the place of the equal sign. That's the only difference. You do the exact same thing as you do with an equation. It's just you don't have an equal sign, you have an inequality sign. The only difference is when you are multiplying or dividing. Both sides of the inequality by a negative number. You must flip the inequality symbol. You have to flip it. But why? So if we take a look here, if negative x is less than 0, then positive x has to be greater than 0. The opposite of a number will have the opposite relationship, right? So if this is a negative x, the opposite of that is a positive x, and our variable always has to be positive. So if this is a negative x, we're going to divide by a negative to get a positive, and so that means the opposite has to be true. Have we talked about how negatives and positives are opposite? So the opposite of a number will have the opposite relationship, less than or greater than, to the final result. So let's take a look here, and let's predict which one of these will have the opposite relationship. Which one of these, when we go to solve it, will we have to flip the sign? So it's when we have to divide by a negative. That means you have a negative coefficient or a negative variable. So here, do I have any negatives? Nope, I won't flip that one. What about when I solve this? What will I divide by? Negative 2. When you divide by negative 2, you'll have to flip the inequality symbol. That's one of them. What about C? What will I divide by on C? Negative 1/2. We'll also have to flip that one. Nope, that's a positive. That's a positive. What am I going to divide by here? Negative 1/2. So we'll have to flip that sign. What am I going to divide by on this one? A positive 3, so I won't flip that. What will I divide by on this one? What's the coefficient in front of that x? A 1. And so is that a negative 1 or a positive 1? That one will be a negative 1, so we would have to flip that symbol as well. So that's part of the process. That's one of the easiest things to make a mistake on, is not remembering to flip a symbol when you divide by a negative. All right, so we're going to try some of these. So, just like this is an equal sign, I'm going to split this right here. What's the first thing I need to do? Subtract 5 from both sides. And I'm left with 3x. That goes away. Bring that straight down. Lots of people want to change it to an equals, but you don't. Equals 6. 3x equals 6. Now what do I do? Divide both sides by 3. And you are left with x is any number greater than 2. How am I going to graph this? This is an open number line, so in the middle of the open number line is where I want to put this number. So I'm going to put a 2 here. Go in this direction, gets bigger. 3, 4, 5. This way gets smaller. 1, 0, negative 1. So you always put your number here in the middle, and then put the appropriate numbers around it. Open or closed point? Open. X has to be any number greater than 2, but it does not include 2. Open. And it goes this direction. So then we're going to check. We're going to check and see if our answer is right. So x has to be any number greater than 2. So pick a number over here on the number line that's greater than 2. 4. So we're going to use substitution, and we're going to say x is 4. So 3 times 4 plus 5 is greater than 11. You could have picked anything bigger than 2. All right, what's 3 times 4? 12. 12 plus 5 is greater than 11. What is 12 plus 5? 17. Is 17 greater than 11? So is that true? Yes, we've checked it. That's what you do. That's how you check. When you go to check, you pick a number on the number line and you substitute it in there. Does that make sense? That was fun. Wasn't that fun? It was so much fun. It really was. What part of that wasn't fun? It was super fun. Okay. Let's try the next one. Negative 2 times x is greater than or equal to 10. This is just a simple old one-step equation, right? Or inequality. Split this. What am I going to do? Divide by, not a positive 2, negative 2. And remember what happens when we divide by a negative. What happens? We have to flip. So we end up with an x is less than or equal to, what's 10 divided by negative 2? Negative 5. Ooh, that was fun. Ooh, that was so much fun. Okay. How do we graph that? What number needs to go in the middle of our number line? Positive 5? Negative 5? All right, now be careful with your number line. Look up at the number line at the front of the room if you need to. Going this way, I have a negative 4, a negative 3, a negative 2, a negative 6, a negative 7, and a negative 8. So this is saying that x has to be any number less than or equal to negative 5. Closed dot or open dot? Closed, because we have to include negative 5. And then, do you see how that points in that direction to the left? This arrow points to the left. We're going to follow that. As long as we have our variable over on the right side, we can just follow that. Now we're going to check it. So, x is any number less than or equal to negative 5. What number do we want to use to substitute in for x? Negative 7? Okay, so let's say negative 2 times negative 7 is greater than or equal to 10. So go back to the original problem. Don't keep this sign flipped. You've got to go back to the original problem. So negative 2 times negative 7 is 14. And is 14 greater than or equal to 10? Yes. True statement. Boom. That's correct. Do you all understand the checking part of it? Yes. So you're just picking any number over on the side where you've graphed. Could I have picked negative 5 on that one? I could have picked negative 5, correct? Because it's a closed dot. On this one, could I have picked 2? No, because it has to be a number greater than 2, so I could not have picked 2. Do you understand the difference? Okay. All right, we've got another page of these to try. That's so exciting. I know, right? You're welcome. It's super fun. You're welcome. Okay. Oh, and this one has a fraction and a negative. That's the best. So much fun. Okay, here we go. Split it right here. First step is to subtract 9 from both sides. And we're left with negative 1/2 x is less than or equal to, be careful when you do the math here, 3 minus 9. I heard it? Negative 6. Great work. All right, now what? Divide by negative 1/2. Divide by negative 1/2. That goes away. So we're left with x. Now we divided by a negative. What do we need to do? Flip. Greater than or equal to negative 6 divided by 1/2. You can use a calculator. Negative 6 divided by 1/2. I don't have mine or I would do it. I know the answer though. Anybody? Anybody? No. It's 12. It's not times 1/2. It's not what's half of negative 6. It's how many halves are in negative 6. And so there's 12 halves. And they're positive, right? A negative divided by a negative is a positive. Remember, make sure you flipped your sign. I wish I hadn't have written so big. It would have made that easier to see. You have x has to be greater than or equal to 12. So I need to put a 12 here. 13, 14, 15, 11, 10, 9. Closed circle or open circle? Closed circle. And I need to go this direction. All right, now I can use substitution. Has to be any number greater than or equal to 12. What do we want to use? We want to use 12? We can do that. So negative 1/2 times 12 plus 9 is less than or equal to 3. Now this is where I can say what is 1/2 of 12. Negative 6. Negative 6 plus 9 is less than or equal to 3. Negative 6 plus 9? 3. 3 is less than or equal to 3. Is that a true statement? Yes. Check. You can see when I was doing my sample problems, you can see here I used 14 because it was right here. And I said half of 14 is negative 7. And then negative 7 plus 9 gave me a 2. And was 2 less than or equal to 3? That was right too. So you can see how you can use a variety of numbers and make it true. Okay, let's look at the next one. What's the first thing I need to do on the next problem? What is it? Subtract 10 from both sides. And I'm left with x is less than, be careful with the math. So you have negative 5 and you go 10 more in the negative direction and you land at negative 15. Be careful with the math. What number needs to go in the center? Negative 15. You've got to be careful with your graphing now. Negative 14, negative 13, negative 12, negative 16, negative 18. Open circle or closed circle? Opened. And it's all the numbers. X is all the numbers less than negative 15. That means I need to go in the direction of this arrow. This way. But it cannot include negative 15. All right. What number do we want to use? What is it? 18? Negative 18? Negative 18 plus 10 is less than negative 5. Negative 18 plus 10 is what? Negative 8. And is negative 8 less than negative 5? Yes. True statement. Oh, these are so much fun. We're going to work on them for like 3 or 4 days. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be just amazing. It will be on the test. Okay. Let's look at the next one. What do I want to do? Add 12 to both sides. And I'm left with 4x, that goes away, is less than 20. And now what? Divide by 4, divide by 4. X is a number that is less than 5. Graph it. 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, 3, 2. All right, open or close circle. If x is a number less than 5, open or closed? Open. And go that direction. So let's pick a number less than 5. 2. 4 times 2 minus 12 is less than 8. 4 times 2 is 8. Minus 12 is less than 8. 8 minus 12 is negative 4. And is negative 4 less than 8? It is. Boom. All right, F. The first thing I see is something that's important to me. What is it? Yes, we're going to divide by a negative. That means what? Flip the sign. So I'm left with x is less than 4 divided by negative half. That means I'm going to have a negative, right? How many halves are in 4? So if I have 4 cookies and I want to break it into halves, how many halves will I get? 8. Negative 8. Or you could have done it on a calculator. 4 divided by negative 0.5. So we have a negative 8 here. Open or closed? Opened. And pick a number less than negative 8. Let's try an even number because getting a half of an even number is easier. 10. So negative 5/10 times negative 10 is greater than 4. What's half of 10? 5, and a negative times a negative is a positive. 5 is greater than 4. Is that true? Yes, positive 5 is greater than positive 4. Getting the idea? Oh, they're so much fun. They really are. Okay, number or letter G. What's the first thing I need to do? It looks a little different than some of the others. But remember, we want to save the coefficient with the variable till last. So we need to add 10 to both sides. Do I flip the sign? Nope. Okay. We're left with 3x is greater than or equal to 2 plus 10 is 12. Divide by 3, divide by 3, and I'm left with x is greater than or equal to 4. What number goes in the middle of my number line? 4. 4, 5, 6, 7, 3, 2, 1. Open or closed circle. Closed circle. And we go this direction. It's a number greater than or equal to 4. All right, what number do we want to try? 5? Okay. Negative 10 plus 3 times 5 greater than or equal to 2. Negative 10 plus 15 is greater than or equal to 2. Negative 10 plus 15 is 5. And is 5 greater than or equal to 2? Yes. Boom. Last one. 8 minus x is less than or equal to 14. What's the first thing I need to do? Subtract 8. Very good. You're left with negative x is less than or equal to 6. Can I leave that negative x there? No, that's a negative 1 in front of it, right? We can't leave it a negative, so divide by negative 1. When I divide by negative, I have to flip the sign, so x is greater than or equal to negative 6. Make sure that you flipped that sign. Open circle or closed circle? Closed. X is a number greater than or equal to, so we've got to go this direction. Pick a number. What do we want to use? Negative 6. So 8 minus negative 6. Be careful. You have that minus you have to keep. And then it's a negative 6. Less than or equal to 14. That really becomes what? 8 plus 6 is less than or equal to 14. And 14 is less than or equal to 14. Check. That was fun. All right, a little bit more to go here. Let's try some of these practice test questions. Choose the two values that could not be a solution to this problem. So normally what I would say would be solve it for x and then interpret the answer. So subtract 3, you're left with 5x is greater than 30. Divide by 5, divide by 5. X has to be a number that is greater than 6. X has to be a number that's greater than 6. So x would be 7, and x could be 10. What could x not be? 6 and 3, and that's what we want, is the ones that are not a solution. So we have to choose C, and we have to choose D. Does that make sense? Two possible solutions are 7 and 10, right? Because x has to be greater than 6. So 6 is not greater than 6, and 3 is not greater than 6. So those are our two that are not a solution. Choose the correct graph of negative 2x is less than or equal to negative 10. So what we've got to think about is if we divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2, what's important about dividing by negative? We just had to flip the sign, right? So our answer becomes x is greater than or equal to 5. Which graph matches greater than or equal to 5? A. That's the appropriate graph. You will need to be able to solve problems like that. Choose the correct solution of, so subtract 5, 3/4 times x is greater than 18. This has a fraction that's going to make a lot of you go, oh, I don't know how to do that problem. What do? Divide both sides by 3/4. On a calculator, you should get x is greater than 24. And so our answer is C. You're good with those? All right, so we've got a couple of half sheets of just some little reminders that we need to look at. All right, so the first thing that we need to know is that in inequality, the order matters. In an inequality, the order matters. So I'm going to need a little highlighter. Order matters. If you noticed, every single one of our problems was set up as the variable, an inequality symbol, and a constant. If you do not have it like that, you have to change the order around when you get your answer. You have got to change it around. So it must be reported as the variable, the symbol, the constant. You cannot change it, though, until after you've solved the problem. So let's look. It says here, if you have to flip-flop the inequality, you must also flip-flop the inequality symbol. So if our answer is 11 is greater than B, if you get 11 is greater than B, can I leave it like that? No, the B has to come first. But if I flip that B to the front, the little point still has to point at the B. So it's the wrong order, you have to flip it. So the B would have to go first. You have to flip the symbol, and then you have to have the constant or the 11 there. So 11 is greater than B can also be said as B is less than 11. Here the 11 is bigger, and here the 11 is still bigger. But you have to change it to variable, symbol, constant. Has to be reported that way at the very, very end. And we'll practice some of those. Everybody okay with that rule? That's just a rule you have to know. That's all you have to write. That right there. Everything else is written for you. Okay? Good with that rule? All right, let's look at the other half sheet. There's some notes here. This might be the most important page for when you're translating words to expressions, right? So that translating, we're still struggling with that, like the problems that we've been doing the last couple of days with 2 steps. So, inequality notes. Well, we know an equation is a statement that says 2 quantities are equal. So an inequality says they're not equal. This chart below shows some phrases and symbols that indicate inequalities. So when you're translating, if you see the words less than, fewer than, or below, that means the less than sign. Now, if you see is less than, that means we're going to subtract. But less than means this. If you see greater than, more than, or above, that's this symbol. Less than or equal to, this one right here, at most, that's a tough one for people. If I have $20 at most in my purse, how much money could I have in my purse? Could I have 25? Or does that mean I have less than 20? Less than 20. If at most I have is $20, that means I could have 10 or I could have 15. But the most I could have is 20. So that's this right here, less than or equal to. Also, no more than means that. Greater than or equal to, that one's pretty obvious. At least, if I said I have at least $20, that means I could have exactly $20, or what else could I have? $30 or $40. If I was super lucky, I could have 1,000. But if I had at least 20, that means exactly equal to 20 or more. Or no less than $20. If I have no less than $20, I could have exactly $20, or I could have more than. These are the most difficult ones for students to translate. All right, so let's try some down here. No more than 20 people can be seated in the restaurant. How would I write that? The number of people in the restaurant is, so no more than, right here, no more than is less than or equal to 200. All right. If I read number 2, the wait time for a table is at least 20 minutes. What does that mean? The waiting time for a table is greater than or equal to. The price of all special dinner entrees is below $10. What does that mean? Less than, right? If it's below, it can't be equal to $10. It's just less than. The Yoshida family spent more than $40 for dinner. What does that mean? Greater than. Is it greater than equal to or just greater than? Just greater than, right? All right, so let's try these problems right here, and then we'll put this in our journal, and we'll be done for today. So add 16 to both sides. And we are left with H is less than or equal to negative 24 plus 16. Positive 8 or negative 8? Negative 8. You do not have to graph it unless it tells you to graph it. Okay, let's try the next one. Y plus 6. What do I need to do? Subtract 6 from both sides. And you're left with Y is greater than or equal to negative 19. And last one, negative 4 is greater than H minus 2. This one's different. What do we need to do? So we want to keep the H by itself. The opposite of subtracting 2 is add 2 to both sides. We're left with negative 4 is greater than H. Can I leave it in that order? No, the variable has to come first. So you need to flip it, and it needs to say H is less than negative 4. You got to flip it, and then if you needed to graph it, then you could graph it. Everybody okay with that? Okay. All right, so cut out your other 2 papers if you need to. And we'll get them glued in our journal, all 4 of them. And we'll update our table of contents. If you're a person that it takes you a while to cut out, you can leave it whole. There's nothing that says it has to be. Except the one I want. Oh no, I want that one. 47. So it's going to be 44 through 47. Forty-four through 47. All right, so take a look up here at the front. Lots of people mess this part up. 44 through 47 means on 44 and 45, you're going to put these first two larger pages like that. On 44 and 45, turn the page, and I'm going to try and get mine over here together like this. That way we've got this page over here for some notes on the left. So I'm going to try to cut mine down just a little bit. There they go.